Hi, everyone, and welcome to Fierce Conversations with Toby, the show where we discover the silver lining in life's most difficult stories. I'm your host, Toby Dorr. Today, I'm so delighted to bring you Judy Helm Wright, who is a woman that I've learned has known what she wanted to do since she was 6 years old. So Judy's a life coach, a life educator, a family coach, and a keynote speaker. She's written more than 20 books, hundreds of articles, and speaks internationally on family, parenting, and relationship issues, including communication, encouragement, and end-of-life relationship issues, which I think is so important because we can't avoid the end of our life, but so many people, want to just breeze through it and pretend like it's not coming and it's not going to happen. And, I've had several opportunities to be with loved ones at the end of their life, and I found it to be a beautiful and powerful experience.
Me too. Very, very spiritual. And of that, have you read the book on being mortal?
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
I'm going to make a note of that. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's written by a physician named Atul Gawande, Atulgawande. And our primary care physician encouraged me to read this because both my husband and I are caregiving for elderly siblings 500 miles away. So we have to on the phone. And essentially, he's a doctor and a son of two doctors who found out that medical, they want to keep you alive as long as you can.
Yeah,
but that's not quality.
That's
that
right.
Should not be what people want.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I have a sister-in-law who's a nurse, and she told me one day, she said, tomorrow they're doing a liver transplant or something on this 93-year-old man. And she said, why are we doing that? She just struggles with what are we trying to do here? So
I know. And when my mom was in hospice, there was a man who was taking his wife in to have a breast exam. And I said, why are you doing that? She's 89 years old.
Yeah.
Has Alzheimer's. Why are you doing that? And he said, I want her to live as long as she can. What would you do if you found out she had cancer? She would not subject her to surgery. Why would you even do that?
Yeah, right. I agree. And, when my mother passed away, she was a fierce woman, I tell you. She was my inspiration for so many things. And she had problems with her lungs. She had COPD and emphysema, and her lungs started filling up with fluid. And we took her to the hospital, and they would drain them, and they would fill back up. And so they sent her from the hospital. They don't let you go home. They sent her to a rehab place right across the street. And the doctor in the rehab place said, she's not going to get better. And we said, well, then we're going to bring her home. We're going to let her die at home. And it was a Sunday. Chris and I, my husband, went to visit her, and we lived out of town about 100 miles away. And I was going to stay there and take her home and, be in her house with her. And Chris was going to go back to work in our home. And we were watching the Chiefs game. My mom was a huge football fan. And this man came in and he said, well, hello, Miss Phelan. I'm here to take you to respiratory therapy. And my mom looked at him and she said, no, I'm not going. And he said, well, what do you mean you're not going? And she said, tomorrow I am going home to die. And you know what that means? She said, that means I don't have to do anything I don't want to do anymore. And I'm not going.
Sister. Yeah.
Yes. And then when we got her home, the hospice nurse came and visited us, and she, tells us we don't know how much time anyone has, and kind of told us some of the things that were going to happen and not to be scared of them. And she said, she probably has up to 10 days. That's my guess, but we never know. And so when the nurse left, my mom said to me, Toby, what did she tell you? And I said, oh, Mom, she said, we can't know. And she said, I know she told you a date. You tell me, how much time do I have? And I said, well, she said it could be 10 days, as long as 10 days. And she looked at me and she looked all around her room. And then she looked back and she said, okay, I'll give you 10 days, but not 1 day longer. And she died 10 days later.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it was, and I think it was just beautiful that we let her do it her way.
Well, you know, Toby, my main passion has always been gathering stories. And as a personal historian, I was a founding member of the Association of Personal Historians, as well as the Montana Storykeepers. But one of the things we found with the Montana Storykeepers, that when we allowed someone to tell their story, an end of life story, their pain went down. Their transition was so much easier. And I really do think that people don't fear death. They fear being forgotten.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And so I am on a crusade to encourage people to write their memoirs, to do like you did, a little snippet, one facet of their life that will teach others, that will, their message, there's a waiting world out there for that particular message. And so it's, I just talked to someone today who wants to write her memoir about infertility. And about the fact that she just, all of the things that went along with that and how she could do it. Another young woman wants to write a memoir of working with her nonverbal autistic son. So it's not a whole life story. It's like
it's a piece.
It's a piece. It's a slice of life.
Yes,
very important. So I liken memoirs and really encourage your audience to go to memoirlifestorywriting.com.
Okay.
And once again, it's memoirlifestorywriting.com. And download a free book on how to, different ways you can write your memoir. And
that's excellent.
Then we're working on an outstanding course right now. And the course and my book with Grace Point is not how to write a memoir, but why you should and what you should, and helping you narrow down into finding that particular pearl on a strand of pearls. So you don't get overwhelmed by the whole necklace, just one little pearl.
I love that. I love that. One little pearl.
Yeah, that's all we need. And that's all we need to read, or that's all we need to digest.
Right.
And those that need that little pearl will be drawn to it.
Yes, I love that. You know, the hardest part for me in writing my memoir was to figure out where it was going to begin and where it was going to end. And, you know, in order to explain the piece of my life that I put into the memoir, I had to go back into my childhood and explain some things. And so when I first started working on it, I thought, well, I've got to start when I'm 5 years old. And then I thought, no, I don't. I can weave that in through a backstory. So, you know, that whole process of the beginning and the ending, and then how to weave in the backstories so you don't have to start from the first day of your life was, you know, very, once I had it, boy, then the book just came, because that was the thing I needed, was to know where to start and where to end.
Right. And I think that some of that backstory, you don't even need to explain. You just need to allude to, like, you know, you're telling the story of imprisonment or whatever. And and the story that you and I have talked about is my time in prison as having gained 100 pounds and making that decision to have gastric bypass, which isn't a right one for everyone.
Right.
But it was for me. And so in writing that essay, that little short segment about that, then I could allude to things that happened in my childhood, or things that happened when I worked in corporate America, like being passed over or whatever. And And quite frankly, I gained 100 pounds with caregiving for parents, my parents. We had 6 kids, and I was working full time.
Yes, yes.
And
that is a burden. And we do tend to just eat to fill a space where we're not filling with something else.
That's exactly right. And you're so tired, you think, oh, well, maybe if I have a donut, that will.
Right, right. Yes, I can so relate to that. And actually, I have a whole set of questions I like to ask people. We're kind of answering them without me asking them. So, but I do want to start with this first one, which I usually start with at the very beginning. And that is, tell me what your favorite color is and why. Because I think it gives us a peek into your personality.
So you see that I'm wearing red. If people will follow me on Instagram, it's Judy Helm Wright, at Judy Helm Wright.
Okay.
See that I'm this gorgeous grandma who is well read and encourages people to write their memoir and encourages them to ask the questions of those that they need to be taught to have to ask. So my favorite color is red, and it's very powerful. And a little story compared to what we were talking about before. When my mom was in, it was called TLC, but it was actually a hospice unit, assisted living. I would wear bright red lipstick, and I would always kiss her on her forehead.
Oh, I love that.
Every CNA, every doctor, every cleaner that came in thought, oh, she is well loved.
Yes.
Somebody's in here. I better take good care of her.
What a great idea. I would never have thought of that, but what a great idea. I love it. I love that. So what's the hardest decision you've ever had to make?
Oh, I think the one I was just mentioning about deciding to get gastric bypass. That's it's never a good option to have elective surgery, but it was one that I, like everything else, I did research. I meditated on it and decided it was the right move. And once I did that, I continued to lose weight until I weigh 160. I'm 5'8". And I got here, my spirit said, okay, you're home.
This is your place. This is where your weight is. Yeah, I like that.
And this is what you've always looked like in spirit. And it's been, this month has been 21 years.
Wow.
And I've always stayed within 5-6 pounds and just very healthy.
I love that.
It was the right thing for me.
Yeah, I've had many surgeries in my life. Most of them were not ones I had choices about. I fell off a horse and shattered my wrist, or I had a colonoscopy and they perforated my colon, things I couldn't control. But this year I had a total knee replacement on my right knee, and I was really nervous going into that, but I had so much pain in walking, and I wasn't ready to slow down and stop moving.
No.
And, we went to New York City on a vacation, a long weekend, and my stepson rented a wheelchair so I could go with him places because I couldn't even walk 2 blocks without stopping. And I wasn't sure if the total knee, I was scared. I knew it was a big surgery, but I'm telling you, I breezed right through it, and it has I really didn't have significant pain. And I was walking without a walker or a cane by the end of the first week. And I just kept blazing forward. And I have my second knee replacement scheduled for October 31st. And I wish it was tomorrow. I'm so ready to get this done, but it does change my life. And I can see that, your gastric bypass surgery, even though it was elective, it did really change your life significantly.
Absolutely. And I've had a knee replacement too. And that's the same thing. I did research. I found the best doctor. I did the whole thing. And it really does. That means that I can keep up with my grandkids. That means that I can walk all over Costco, and my little Apple Watch will say,
yes. I've got
you finally made
it
today.
I love that. So tell us about a significant event in your life that knocked you down And how did you pick yourself up?
I think that alludes back to the gastric bypass when I was overlooked for a promotion that I should have had.
Mm-hmm.
Then they brought in a young white male and then asked me to train him. And I thought, oh, Godfrey, here I go again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came home from that particular conversation and was walking to the mailbox with my 15-year-old, he's now 40, but my 15-year-old son. And he started telling me something. And I said, Andy, stop. I have listened to problems all day long. Go for a walk. And he touched my arm, which in our family is a signal. This is important to me.
Wow.
He touched my arm up here and he said, who do you want me to tell my problems to? And I went in the next day and quit. Said, actually, I said, I'm too good to work here.
Wow. I love that.
And the general manager said, well, that's just a little arrogant. And I said, no, it's the truth. I really, it's not that I'm better than you. It's just that I'm too good to work here. I can't overlook all of the things that you're doing to my community. I can't be a part of it.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a hard decision. And, all the way home, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? I wonder if I can recant. How are we going to make it without?
It's always hard to quit your job because, how is that going to affect your future? What are you going to do with yourself and your time? And, there's a lot of angst in that. And that's pretty bold and brave to just walk in and say, I quit.
Yep.
I love it. Yep. I love it.
But do you know what? Somehow, as in all things in life, you make do.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And you find another path. And that you couldn't have taken had you stayed in a place where you weren't happy.
Absolutely.
I just love that. So who has been your most important mentor?
In business or in life?
I think in life.
Probably. One of the books that I wrote was called Healing Hands. And it went back 7 generations of women on my matriarchal side. And most of them had been, in fact, all of those 7 had been either birth doulas, death doulas, midwives, nurses, herb doctors, dealt with folk medicine, worked with the Paiute Indians in healing, worked, with their healer. And of course, my healing is with my fingers. But when I wrote that, I was able to start with my daughter, who had kids, and when her kids would get hurt, she would just, without even knowing why, would breathe on her hands, rub her hands together, and put her hands over their sore. Cuddle them, put their hands. So that probably was one of those books that, of course, never went out of my family, but it was certainly one that helped me to understand that what I am and what I share is intergenerational.
I love that.
And I'm with most women, and in researching that, a lot of them were like my great-great-grandmother, who was the herb doctor to the Paiute. I don't have any of her journals. I don't have any of her anything. But I do have a couple of pages of her husband's. And he said in there, supper will be late again today because Sade's out, it's Sarah, but Sade is out ministering to those damn Indians. I was so, you SOB, couldn't you open a can of Campbell's soup? Well, of course he could. But surely he could have eaten some dried bread, or he could have scrambled some eggs. He could have done all of that. So one of the things in this generational line that I have done, and I've broken that chains of patriarchy and helped my daughters to be strong and to stand up for themselves and to not apologize for who they are, taking space, and taught our son how to be a good, kind, loving man. And he certainly has seen that with my husband, who probably is my really mentor, because we've been married for 59 years.
Wow.
And he continues to inspire me. You know, if we call one of the kids or the kids call us or a grandkid, we always say, I love you at the end. And if I forget, he makes me call him back.
Oh, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know, my husband is a mentor to me as well. And we've been together for 14 years. And he just really, I like to say he's the keel to my boat.
Absolutely.
Because my boat tends to, and he just keeps me, you know, on the straight and narrow. And I'm the anchor to his ship because I've given him a home and stability. Because he was, you know, home didn't matter to him. He'd sleep in a friend's basement or he'd sleep in his car. It just didn't matter. It wasn't important. And now he has a home and stability. And I really think that, you know, when you have two people who complement each other so well, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It equals something like 11.
Right.
You know, it's just exponentially more.
Right.
So I can relate to that. And I also have a really strong connection to my great-great-grandmothers as well. My grandma, I actually have a quilt and the doll that belonged to my great-great-grandmother. And my grandma was born in 1907, and I'm not sure when her grandmother was born, but it had to be in, you know, I don't know, 1830 or something. And I have her doll and her quilt that she made.
How fun.
Which I just think is awesome, you know, and people look at it and go, what do you want with that old thing? And it's like, oh, it's not that old thing. It is my great-great-grandmother's doll.
Right.
You know, and I just love that connection because I do think as women, we pass things down to our daughters, and it's a very strong pipeline of inspiration and courage and strength, you know, to move forward. Because I do think that, especially in my great-great-grandmother's and my great-grandmother's times, it wasn't as easy for women to move forward and be a leader as it is today. But I still think we have a long way to go.
You know, Toby, what we're talking about is the doll doesn't mean anything without the story. The quilt doesn't mean anything without the story.
That's right.
And one of the things that my husband and I did for our 50th anniversary, which Grace Point printed for me or published for me, was it was called An Ethical Will, Grandpa and Grandma Wright's Guide to Life. And
I like that.
And I don't know if you know what an ethical will is, but
I don't.
You know, your last will and testament is saying, I want this doll to go to so-and-so because it was my great-grandmother's. I want this quilt to go to so-and-so.
Right.
But an ethical will is old method of passing down a blessing to your descendants. And so we did that on our 50th anniversary. And you can order that through Grace Point. It's very, I wasn't as happy with the, how they, what am I trying to say? The formatting is, wished I would have been. I probably needed to look at that again. But it was interesting because the advice and blessing my husband did, of course, was find a good mechanic you can trust, change oil 3,000 miles, you know, never spend in anticipation of making money. And mine was all very spiritual. Ask for what you want. Do just have courage. But I think that in addition to our tangible things, we have an obligation to share our insights and our blessings and our wishes and dreams and desires for those who follow after us.
Mm-hmm.
And not always are they our children and grandchildren.
That's true.
Often they are a motherless child.
Yes.
Or a motherless adult, or someone who came from a family, in addition to our 6 children, they always brought friends home.
Right.
And one woman who is now a pediatric doctor said that when she used to come to our house, she said, "You don't know this, but I carried a little notebook. And I would go home, and in my notebook and in my journal, I would say, this is what a normal family does."
Oh, wow.
And one time my husband was in the garage and I was in the kitchen. We had the radio on and it was playing "Don't It Make Your Brown Eyes Blue?" And that just has such a good beat. And he came in the kitchen and that was playing, and I was standing at the sink, and he grabbed me and we danced around the kitchen. And we looked in the living room, and little Beckett was crying. And we sat beside her. What are you doing, sweetheart? What's the matter? And she said, "I never knew parents danced in the kitchen."
Oh, wow.
She said, "I know they fought in the kitchen. I know they've thrown things in the kitchen, but I've never known that they danced in the kitchen. I'm going to marry a man. I'm going to find a man who will dance with me in the kitchen." And she did. And
oh, wow.
She got engaged. She called and said, "I've found somebody that will dance with me in the kitchen."
I love that.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Isn't it?
I love that.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So tell us about how a turning point in your life propelled you in a new direction. I think you've told us about quitting your job, and perhaps that's the one. But
well, one of them was I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, but they are a huge gifting philanthropic thing that studies different things and gives money. So they were doing a study on how a community handles end of life. And they had, on the faith community and on the medical community and on academic, all of these different things. But I was asked to be on the storytelling and the story gathering. And that really cemented in my mind how important it is for people to share their stories. And it isn't therapy, but it's very therapeutic.
It is very therapeutic, and I feel, the day that my life turned around when I was in prison was when I realized that I had a story I needed to tell, and that telling my story could help other women.
Absolutely.
That gave me purpose, and it gave me significance. And I have interviewed so many women who've been in prison, and I think every one of them has a story to tell and needs to tell, because their stories can encourage other women who are currently in prison, that they can get through this and move on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And no matter where you are, that doesn't mean you have to stay there.
That's right.
So
that's right.
You can grow, you can develop. And, it makes me so happy to be able to teach my grandkids things. And I don't mean like how to throw a ball and everything, but I mean teaching them to use artificial intelligence and teaching them how to use the new threads to say, "Hey, come in my office. I want to show you what I'm doing on Threads." See where we are on Instagram. And it's fun for me to know that, that I'm going to be living and creating and growing until I'm 97. And I'm 79 right now.
Wow. That's awesome. I had a dream once, many, many, many years ago, and I saw myself at my 87th birthday party. So, I've always told people, well, I'm going to live to be at least 87.
Right.
Because I have a birthday party I need to go to.
Right.
So we'll see. Yeah. But I feel like, however long my life lasts, from the time I turn 50 and on, that's the richest, uh, strongest, most impactful part of my life. So it's certainly not the years that I have nothing to do.
Wouldn't that? No, I didn't even want to. Yeah,
Mhm.
I really do think that our lives are in trimesters. And if you think of when you were pregnant, that first
Mhm.
3 months is actually just forming.
Yes.
That's all. Then the next 3 months is kind of growing and
Mhm.
showing. Then the last trimester is when you're viable. You're fully
Yes.
formed. You're
Mhm.
just enhancing. So
Mhm.
one of the books I want to do with Grace Point is my third trimester.
I love that.
Yeah, and I do feel like that's where I'm at right now. Is my third trimester.
I feel the same way. I love that. I think you're onto something there. Because it's definitely not a half of your life
Yeah,
isn't divided into
no,
halves because yeah, I like that.
and that
I like
crazy
that.
thing of middle age, middle of what?
Y- yes. Yes. You know, and I wouldn't go back. Some people go, "Oh, I wish I was 20 again." It's like,
No,
not
no,
me.
no.
No way. I'm not going back even one day. I'm moving forward. So,
And my husband and I were just in a restaurant recently, and there was a family with little kids, which, by the way, blows my mind that they can afford to eat in a restaurant with a family of
mhm.
3 little kids and everyone having soda. And I just think, I don't know how you can afford that. You must be very well to do or something.
Mhm.
But Dwayne looked over at them and he said, "Oh, wasn't that a fun time in our life?" And I said, "No, it's hard
Yeah.
work.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
So
is.
hard
Mm,
work." And we've always been partners. He's always helped
yes.
100.
Uh-huh.
But that, the moments of pure joy were there, but it wasn't a
Mhm.
continuum.
It was hard work.
Hard.
I tell you, we live with my stepson and his family. So we have a separate living space in their walkout basement, and they're just right upstairs. So we see our grandkids all the time, which I think is wonderful and beautiful and excellent for them and for us too. And we've gotten so much closer and such a stronger family. But there are so many days when I say, "Okay, kids, go upstairs. Grandma's done," and then I say to my husband, I could never do that again.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
And yet there are,
it was a lot of work.
I'm also a parent educator. When you live as long as I have, there isn't too much I haven't done. But
Mhm.
I taught up on the reservation here in Montana, and so many of the people coming to my parent education classes were grandmothers raising
Mhm.
grandchildren.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And
It's so prevalent,
oh,
and
so
I
hard.
couldn't do it. I'd do it if I had to. I know I could do it, but I don't wanna.
No, no, no. And I bless their hearts, bless,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they're stepping up, and I appreciate that. But that's a hard
Yeah.
step up.
It is hard. It's very hard. So, was there ever a time you really felt imprisoned? And what did you do to liberate yourself?
Well, and I've already alluded to that I was
Mhm.
imprisoned by 100 extra pounds.
Yes,
Made the
yes.
decision to have gastric bypass and rid myself of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful story. So, what's one question you wish I'd asked that I haven't asked you yet?
Um, Maybe just what's next on my agenda.
Yeah, so tell us about that. What is
Well,
next?
I'm doing a nice a free master class, which I hope I can share with you, and you will share with your listeners
Yes.
on tell your story, write your memoir, and
Mhm.
and then that free master class, and then I've got a 6-week self study class, and then 10-week one-on-one live interaction class on helping people to capture that slice, capture those pearls,
Mm.
and why they should. And
Yeah, I love
yeah,
that.
so once again, I'd like to invite your listeners and you to go
Mhm.
to memoir life story writing.com. And a lot of times people say, how do you spell memoir? It's MEMOIR, life,
Mhm.
LIFE, story, Story, writing, WRITING.com.
Yes, excellent. And we're going to have links to your website
Oh, thank
and to your social media, to your books, whatever you want. We're going to have links in the show notes. So people just be able to click right on them and get there.
Oh, I love it.
We'll be sure and include all that for you. So is there a question you'd like to ask me?
No, I admire you, Toby. I think that you have taken this book and really done a marvelous job of marketing. And from my experience of having written 22 books and 5 or 6 ghostwritten books, writing is the easy part.
You're right about that.
Marketing
Oh my gosh.
is a pain in the butt.
Yes, it is. And it's never ending. And it is so much work. It's just constant.
Right.
Yeah.
And so many people saying, this is the way, this is the way, this is the way. Oh, you're doing it all wrong. This is the way, this is the way. And you just think, it's so much easier for me just to go write another book.
Yes. Yes.
Shut the door, turn on NPR, and just write another book. I
agree.
You know,
I have a bunch of projects dancing around in my head, and it's like, but I don't have time to start one right now because I'm just too busy, with social media marketing and, all these things that you have to do, but I'll get there.
Well, here's a little tip that I just learned from a podcaster recently who said I was bragging on my Instagram and my Twitter and my threads and everything. And he said, you'll never sell anything on social media. Except, he said, you'll get brand awareness and people will know you, but you'll never sell anything from there. He said, except that for some reason, people are having amazing results selling on Pinterest.
Oh, interesting.
I know. And I don't even go on there. So
I haven't either. I got a Pinterest account years ago and I was just, collecting pictures of things I liked. And I haven't been there for probably 5 or 6 years. Maybe I'll have to go back and check it out.
Yeah, me too. So
interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So what's one word that inspires you?
Well, it isn't a word, but it's a phrase.
Okay.
Called ask for what you want. And what we've taught our children and grandchildren, and in the ethical will, I've reiterated this many, many times, be really clear on what you want and then ask for it. If you don't get it from that one, then just very politely say, well, who could I talk to who would help me? And who could I talk to that would help me? And if you're clear on what you want, when you voice that out, not only are humans going to help you, but the universe is. So just be clear on what you want and then ask for what you want.
I love that. And well, Judy, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. I've loved having you. And I think it's so inspiring to see how you still have so many things going and you're 79. And I'm sure there's people out there who think I'm too old to start anything.
I know it. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's just awesome and inspiring. And I can't wait to get your message out into the world about how important everyone's story is and how they need to tell it. And I think it's beautiful that you have things in place to help people be able to tell their own stories.
I do, and I want to. And
yes, I love that.
All right. Well, Toby,
I love that.
for having me on. I enjoyed it.
You're so welcome. I enjoyed it too. I loved getting to talk to you and learn more about you. So thank you, Judy.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you for joining me on Fierce Conversations with Toby. Your support and listening means so much to me, and I hope today's conversation makes a difference in your world. If you would like to support this podcast, there are many ways to do so. I found these ways tend to help the most in getting our message out into the world. Number 1, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to or watch this podcast. If you can leave a 5-star rating or a like on this episode on YouTube, that helps even more. And if you leave a comment or a review, that helps the most. The next way you can support Fierce Conversations with Toby is to join our Patreon at patreon.com/fierceconversations. All tiers come with a downloadable digital gratitude journal created by me and membership in a private Facebook group that I also lead. Most importantly, 10% of all proceeds from your subscription will go directly to donating my workbooks to women in prison. Finally, sharing the link to this show with your friends, family, and anyone who wants to listen is appreciated more than I can say. Thank you again for joining me today and supporting this show by listening to it and sharing it with friends. Fierce Conversations is created and hosted by me, Toby Dorr. Produced by Number 3 Productions. The theme song that you're hearing now, Groovin', was composed and arranged by Lisa Plass. Lisa also plays the flute for the theme, with Carolyn Parody on piano and Tony Ventura on bass. Find out more at tobydor.com. This is Fierce Conversations with Toby. Escape your prison.